Morning Year 6, we're going to go through Wednesday's math session today, which is can I convert between fractions and decimals? So of course there's the 5-minute starter, and the answers from yesterday. So firstly, what is a decimal number? So a decimal number is of course a number that has a decimal point in it. And we use decimal numbers to show parts of a whole, so it's between two whole numbers. So firstly, we need to look at the place value of each of these digits. So what is the place value of the 2 in, the 3, and the 6? So it's in the tenths. So we've got 2 tenths, 3 hundredths, and 6 thousandths. Now this is a decimal. We've got 0.1. So we can quite clearly write it as 0.1. We can say that it's 1/10 because the 1 is in the tenths column. Or we can say it as a fraction as 1/10 because we know 1/10 is 1/10, so 1/10 is a fraction. Or we can say that there's 1 out of 10 parts because if I were to draw a bar and I were to split my whole into 10 equal parts, I'd be looking at 1 of those 10 parts. So as you can see, exactly what I've just said. If I had a whole, I split it into 10 equal parts. If I'm looking at 1/10, I'm looking at 1 of those parts, which is 0.1. So what do you think 6/10 would be? Yeah, I could either do 0.1 times 6 or add 6 lots of 0.1. So it's quite simply 0.6. Okay, and do you notice that we've got 6/10 as a fraction? So we've got 6 as the numerator, the denominator as 10, and then with the decimal, we haven't got any wholes because we've got part of a whole. And then we've got 0.6, so 6 is in the tenths column. Okay, what do you think 0.7 would be? We'll do it the other way around now, as a fraction. Yeah, so the 7 is in the tenths column, so it would simply be 7/10. Okay, now I've split my whole into how many parts do you think? Yeah, I've split it into 100 parts. And how many of those 100 parts are shaded? You're quick at counting, you'll see that there's 19 out of the 100 shaded, so there's 19 hundredths. And if I was to write that as a fraction, we know that 19 of the 100 parts are shaded, so it'd be 19 hundredths. And to write that as a decimal, it would be 0.19. And let's have a look at this one. This time, how many of the 100 parts are shaded? Because that will be your numerator. So I've got 39 hundredths. Now, do you think you know what that would be as a decimal? Now, would I have a whole? No, because to make a whole, I need 100 hundredths. So we definitely know that it's going to be a 0 point something. And then have a look. My top tip to you is that we've got 39 hundredths. So the last digit in the numerator needs to be in the hundredths column. So you should have 0.39. Okay, we've got 3 full tenths, so 1, 2, 3, and then 9 hundredths. Make 39 hundredths. Okay, 60 hundredths. What would that be as a decimal? Be 0.60. Now, do we need the 0 at the end, do you think? Because 60 hundredths is the same as what? How many lots of tenths? Have a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just going to show you more clearly now. So instead of having my whole split into 100 pieces, it's split into tenths now. And how many of those tenths are shaded? So 60 hundredths is the same as how many tenths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 0.6. So you do not need to have the 0 after the 0.6. So 60 hundredths we know is equivalent to 6/10. Okay, have a look at this decimal number. We've got 0.24. Now think about what we looked at the beginning. We could say it's 0.24, or we could say this represents what? 24 hundredths we could have. And to write that as a fraction, it would be 24 over 100. And my top tip to you, like I said, when you're looking at the decimal, is to look at the digit in the last place value column to the right And whatever place value column that's in will be your denominator. So we know that that's the tenths and that's the hundredths. Okay, let's look at this one. So I've got 0.567. What place value is the 7 in? Because that will be your denominator. So the 7 is in the thousandths column. So you should have 567 thousandths. Okay, now if you're looking at this video at home, you can have a quick recap by doing those in your books. So what about the other way? We've already recapped on this slightly. Now we've got 1/100th, which I could write as that. As a decimal, oh, I've got 1 out of 100, that means. And if I was to show this visually, there we go. And as a decimal, it's 0.01 and 0.01 if I'm writing it in word form. So we know that 1/100th is 1 out of 100 pieces, so 100 equal parts. If I would split my whole into 100 equal parts, I'm looking at one of those. Have a go at doing this. It's the opposite way round now. Okay, it's the opposite way round. So you're writing the fractions as decimals. Okay, what about a fraction where the denominator isn't 10 or 100? Let's start on these ones. So let's have a look at 1/5. Now I've got 1/10 represented above in the bar. So I've got my whole bar split into 10 equal pieces, and then below I've got the same size bar split into 5 equal pieces. Now 1/5 is equivalent to how many tenths? So if you saw a moment ago, it's equivalent to 2 tenths, which is the same as what do you think is a decimal? It's the same as 0.1 add 0.1, 0.2. So if you know 1/5 is 0.2, what do you think 2/5 is? Yeah, it'd be 0.2 add 0.2 to make 0.4. Just like we've just said a moment ago. So 2/5 will now be 0.4. 4/5, we're just simply multiplying our answer what we got for 2/5. So if we know that 2/5 is 0.4, 4/5 is 0.8, and the same on the other side, 3/5, what do you think 3/5 is? It's 0.2 add 0.2 add 0.2, or 0.2 times 3, which is 0.6. And then to get from 3/5 to 6/5, you are just going to multiply by 2. So 0.6 multiplied by 2 is 1.2. Now we've got a whole number here because we've now got more than 5/5. Okay, so we've now got more than a whole. So we know that 5/5 makes one whole, and then we've got 1/5 left, which is 0.2. So 1 whole add 0.2 would be 1.2. Okay, now these are just showing equivalent fractions. We know that a 0.46 would be 46/100ths. And then if I wanted to find an equivalent fraction to 46/100ths or simplify it, I can divide 100 by 2 to make the denominator 50, and whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do to the numerator. So if I've divided the denominator by 2, then I need to divide the numerator by 2. So 46 divided by 2 is 23. Same with the next one. So 0.35 would be how many hundredths? So how many hundredths do I have? I should have 35 hundredths. Now I know that I can simplify this fraction because I can divide 100 by 5 to make 20, and so I can do the same to the numerator because it will still give me a whole answer, a whole numerator. So 35 divided by 5 equals 7. And this question here, we've got 3/10 equals 0.03. Does it equal? Is that 3/10? Have a look at what place value column the 3 is in. Is it in the tenths column? Have a think if you were to imagine a whole. Let's say I was like a square and I split my square into how many pieces. So look at what place value column that 3 is in. It's in the hundredths column. So I've not got 3/10, I've got 3 hundredths instead. Okay, this is what I'd like you to complete at home. And there's the answers to go through it. And just before we move on and finish the lesson, how do you think you would write this decimal as a fraction? Now it's different because it's not just 0 point something. We've now got a whole number, okay? And that is just how you would write it as a mixed number. So I know that I've got 5 wholes and I've got 0.9 remaining. Now that 9 is in what place value column? Yeah, it's in the tenths. So I'd simply write 9 tenths. 5 and 9 tenths. And I can't simplify that fraction anymore. Have a go at those ones. And then do the opposite as well. So convert the mixed numbers here into decimals. And the last thing that we're going to go through today is what if your denominator isn't either 10, 100 or 1,000? Okay. So if your denominator isn't 10 or 100, you need to make your denominator 100 because then it's easier, okay? So for example, if you look at the screen, I've got 12 50ths. At the moment, my denominator isn't 100, it's 50, but I can easily make it 100 by finding an equivalent fraction. And I know that I can convert the denominator from 50 to 100 by multiplying by 2. So 50 multiplied by 2 equals 100. And again, finding equivalent fractions, whatever you do to the denominator, you need to do to the numerator. So 12 times 2 is 24 hundredths. Now this is easy because you know how to convert a fraction which has 100 as the denominator into a decimal. So 24 hundredths equals 0.24. Let's look at another example as well. I've got a half, okay? At the moment, my denominator is 2. What do I need to multiply 2 by to make the denominator 100? I need to multiply it by 50. So whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So 1 times 50 is 50, and of course the denominator is 100. So 50 hundredths is what as a decimal? Yep, you could write 0.50, but 50 hundredths, remember, is equivalent to how many tenths? 5 tenths, which is just 0.5. Okay, let's look at this one, 9 20ths. What do you need to multiply 20 by to make 100? You're going to multiply it by 5. And you do the same to the numerator. So whatever you do to the denominator, you do to the numerator. So 9 times 5 equals 45. Now you can convert it easily into a decimal, 0.45. Okay. And then have a go at these as well. And that's the lesson complete. And I'll talk to you through Thursday's one later. Well done, Year 6.